Do you suffer with PMS? Do you have several days out of your month where you feel like a fire-breathing dragon? Or maybe you're grabbing the box of Kleenex because you don't know why you're always crying. These are all signs of symptoms in the luteal phase of your cycle that actually can be supported with proper lifestyle and diet choices. Join us this week as we do a deeper dive into the luteal phase and look at what's going on in the body, how you end up with these PMS type symptoms, and what you can do about it. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I am an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. So here we are. We are in the luteal phase. We have covered the basics of your menstrual cycle, and in previous episodes, we have done a deeper dive into menstruation and what it looks like and what it does, the follicular phase, its functions, and ovulation. So now we are coming to rest in the luteal phase. So ovulation marks the start of the luteal phase. It is the yang phase of the cycle in Chinese medicine. It is all about heat and energetic activity. So this is why ovulation marks the beginning of it. It is an energetic activity. The luteal phase, if people are tracking their basal body temperature, is heralded by a rise in your basal body temperature. So ovulation happens and you will see at least 0.4 of a degree rise in your basal body temperature when you are in the luteal phase, and 3 days after that rise, you will confirm where your ovulation took place. So there is a heat component to the luteal phase. So like I said, the luteal phase starts on the first day of the ovulation window and it continues until menstruation begins. This is like menstruation being part of the follicular phase. Ovulation is part of the luteal phase. Our luteal phase is really important when people are trying to conceive, especially because you have to have enough heat in order to carry the pregnancy. So the luteal phase can be 11 to 17 days in length, although I've seen the best pregnancy outcomes in my clients when they have a 13 to 15 day luteal phase on average. The issues that I've seen with fertility generally happen, at least from a luteal phase perspective, when the luteal phase is shorter than 10 days. Some texts will say 13 days. I see most luteal phase deficit parameters being a 10-day or shorter. I have seen people get pregnant with an 11 or a 12-day luteal phase, although I have seen a higher number of people have a miscarriage in my practice. So this is anecdotal from my practice. Usually 13 days seems to be the magic number in terms of that changing the success rate in terms of carrying a pregnancy full term. The luteal phase deficiency, like I said, is when people have a short luteal phase of 10 days or less, and there isn't enough heat in that phase to hold the pregnancy. So we are looking for heat, for warmth. There is this Chinese medicine saying that warm feet are fertile feet, and we have to maintain this warm feet all month long. But successful pregnancies happen in people who have a longer luteal phase. So, one thing people aren't aware of is that your luteal phase is typically fixed. So, when your period arrives at different times during the month, more often than not, it is connected to the follicular phase changing in its length because the luteal phase is fixed. So let's say somebody ovulates on day 12. So your luteal phase, 12 plus however many days their luteal phase typically is, will give you the number of days of their cycle, and you will know what day it starts. So sometimes when we have stress in our lives, it can actually shorten, well, it could shorten or lengthen depending on what's going on. But let's say for the sake of this illustration that it shortens the follicular phase. So if they have ovulation happening on day 8, which I have people in my practice that happens. Let's say they have a 13-day luteal phase. So 13 plus 8 is how many, right? That is going to give you a short cycle, right? So a lot of times that's where your fluctuation is going to be, is more on the preparing for ovulation side of things because the luteal phase is fixed. So if you're finding that your luteal phase, like mine, for example, one of the challenges that I historically had with recurrent miscarriage was that I had too short of a luteal phase. My luteal phase was like 10 or 11 days. It was really, really short. And my basal body temperature after ovulation, it would rise, but it didn't rise very far. And I lost 3 pregnancies during that time frame. So I've done a lot of work with herbs and pelvic steaming and acupuncture on my body, and I have seen a huge change. I now have a 14-day luteal phase. It took a long time, but it is possible. So it means making very specific lifestyle changes. It means making a very conscious effort with your diet, how you spend your energy through the month, and things like that. But it is entirely possible to change the length of the luteal phase through an Eastern medicine lens. So don't be discouraged. If you are somebody who does have issues with your luteal phase, that is something that the Eastern medicine toolkit does have ways of working with, but just know that it is absolutely not an Amazon Prime kind of fix. It is a long churn, dedicated kind of process where, I mean, it's taken me years to build in the kind of heat that my body needed in order to have a normal length luteal phase. So while it is not impossible, I just want to set expectations that this is not an Amazon Prime kind of fix. Like all of these types of menstrual cycle fixes, like none of them, when you're working from an Eastern medicine perspective, are an overnight kind of thing. We in our culture are just hardwired for instant gratification. And when it comes to creating change in phases of the cycle, the yin phase is a little bit faster in terms of responding than the yang phase is. However, both phases require changes in lifestyle, changes in the way that you're spending your energy, the way that you're sleeping, the things that you're eating. Like you have to be consistent, and it requires a lifestyle change. However, it is entirely possible to do it because you're talking about a brand new way of moving through the world. You are talking about nourishing the roots of the tree instead of only clipping off the dead branches at the top. You know, Eastern medicine practitioners see themselves as gardeners. And just think about it. Like if you have a plant in your garden, let's say you've got a flowering plant in your garden and it's just not thriving. Do you walk up to the plant and you shit talk the plant? Like, come on, plant, like, why aren't you blooming yet? Right? We don't do that. Because the plant is, one, not going to talk back to you, but two, we just know that it got to be something in the plant's environment. It may be the sunlight isn't getting to it because the plant next to it is too tall and it's blocking the sunlight it was getting. Maybe it means transplanting the plant next to it so it gets full sun and then it flourishes. Maybe if it was anything like it was here in New England this summer, we didn't have nearly as much rain as we usually do, and I had plants in my own garden that were really struggling because they needed me to water them daily because it was so hot and so dry for such a long period of time that those poor plants were really struggling. But I'm not going to walk up to the plant and yell at the plant because the plant isn't flourishing, right? You have to look at your body the same way because you are the plant. And if your luteal phase isn't long enough, or you start being symptomatic, which we're going to get to in a second, you start being symptomatic as the month goes along, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with your environment and your container. So maybe you're not sleeping enough. Maybe you've been eating poorly and you know it. Maybe you need to get more of certain types of foods in your diet. Maybe you need to take a look at the label of your beauty products and get rid of the ones that have all kinds of endocrine disrupting chemicals in them. Whatever it is, we're looking at nourishing the plant. That will help the outcome of the entire presentation of the menstrual cycle, but particularly here in the luteal phase. And I say that foreshadowing PMS. So premenstrual syndrome, or for some people, unfortunately, it's premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. These are things that arise when the body is out of balance. So there are levels of stagnation in the body, meaning that energy or fluids of the body are not moving smoothly and appropriately enough, and their slowdown creates symptoms. This is why we get cranky, and some people describe themselves as feeling like a fire-breathing dragon for 5 days before their period starts. And then once the period starts, it's like the dam opens and the water goes down over the dam and the pressure is relieved and you no longer want to kill everyone around you, right? We make tons of jokes in our culture. There are memes up the wazoo that have to do with menstrual stuff. So I think about like one of the memes that I shared like years ago now is the number one most shared post I have ever made. And what it is it is a simple 4 boxes of it's like this little bunny character, and she looks totally normal in the first box. And then her hair is on fire and her eyes are bulging out in the second box. And she's sobbing in the third box. And like, it's me on my period. And then you have all these little characters in these 4 little boxes. And the thing is we normalize this shit in our culture. And it's bullshit. It is bullshit. This is a byproduct of the fact that we have too many things in our environmental container that is keeping the plant from flourishing. So if we move differently through our day, so literally moving, as in our culture is very sedentary. We sit at a lot of desks, and I am not saying this from a place I have this all figured out because I sit at a desk a fair bit too. However, what it does mean is when you have a break at lunch, get up, walk around. Don't work through your lunch. Do not sit at your desk. Yes, I see you, because I used to be that person too. Move your body. I felt the best when I was in a corporate job. I felt the best when I was going down to the corporate gym and working out during my lunch break. Oh my gosh, I'd come back to my desk with so much more energy, a clear head. That punctuated change in my day made all the difference. But it wasn't just the brain break. It was the fact that I was moving my body. I had a decrease in my PMS. I didn't kill my children in the few days before. I have clients who will jokingly say things like, I apologize to everybody for everything that I said in the 3 days leading up to my period. There are some of my clients whose partners will look at them a couple of days before their period and go, your period's coming, isn't it? And they won't even realize that their period is coming until their partner notes it. And then they go, oh, actually, yeah, yep, it's coming. And, but it's because of this change in their behavior. So get out and walk on your lunch break. Maybe you walk before work. Maybe you take a yoga class. Maybe, whatever it is, move your body. Because when you are sitting, you are feeding stagnation. It is normal during the luteal phase for things to start to slow down because it's preparing for this big process. Stress will make us slow down, will stagnate the movement of energy and fluids in our body. We need to move because that movement is not only going to help the emotional symptoms, but it's going to help the physical ones as well. But it has to be appropriate movement for that part of the cycle. So we are not trying to set personal records here, folks. That was for the ovulation phase. Right now, we are just trying to move consistently, move with intention. And for some people, I'm thinking more particularly for my PMDD folks, you need to move a little more aggressively when you have PMDD. So, maybe a jog instead of just a walk, or definitely not crazy HIIT cardio though, because that's going to be too much. We don't want you to gas out. We want you to move enough that you're breaking a sweat, you're feeling good about it, but it could be putting on music that your toddler just absolutely loves and is going to get down with their bad self. And you put that music on and you get down with your bad self while your toddler is just totally loving the fact that they have your full attention and you are dancing with them and you're listening to their favorite song, but what mom is getting out of it is the fact that her circulation is moving and she's breaking a little bit of a sweat while she's having this bonding moment with her child. So maybe it's the little tiny rebounder that you got your kids, or the little tiny trampoline that you have in your backyard, and you got the little one for the kids, but you go bounce on that. Like, it raises your serotonin and dopamine levels. You feel like a rock star after you have 10 minutes jumping on a little tiny trampoline, right? So this is one of the things I asked for Christmas, actually, because moving your circulation like that is a very gentle way to go about doing it. You're not expending a ton of energy, but it's very, very effective for people who tend to have more of these PMS type symptoms and or PMDD. I'm thinking a lot more specifically towards PMDD because it's a deeper level of stagnation. But little things like this during your luteal phase is going to make your period not suck when it shows up, because you're doing an appropriate amount of movement. You're not overtaxing your system, but you're getting circulation moving and you're fighting against that natural slowing down of the fluids that happen just before your period starts. This is why people feel bloated and gross just before their period starts. Shit's getting stuck, folks. If it feels like it's just sitting there, you gotta move it. So the luteal phase is usually one of the more symptomatic ones, particularly in the last few days before the period begins. And this is where you can affect how you feel during that time frame. Like, you will feel less irritated with the world around you if your fluids and energy are moving appropriately. You are not going to want to burn down the entire village. It is entirely possible to cruise through these few days at the very tail end of your luteal phase and show up in your menstrual phase where your period begins and go, oh, I didn't have any of the normal symptoms. I didn't know this was coming. And it just gently appears. Like, this is reality. Like, it is totally possible. My clients, I love the look of their mind blowing Whenever, I mean, it brings so much joy to my heart when they get to the point where they have taken enough proactive steps that they get to this point where their period just sneaks up on them. Not that I want them to have an accident, but they're like, I didn't have anything going into it. It just started and it was red and I didn't want to hurt everyone. Like, wow, this is new, right? Because we have normalized in our culture that being a fire breathing dragon or a big old raging bitch is normal. Like, I have gone into talks where I introduced as the speaker for the activity or the event or whatever it is. And there is that snarky guy in the room that goes, "Oh, do you fix PMS?" Right? Oh my God. That person, that persona used to make me so angry because it was so stereotypical for somebody to respond that way. And I realized I had to take a step back and I had to stop being defensive about it because it used to just make me irate for the person that was their partner. I used to just get so mad. And then I realized that it was a lack of education. It is part of why I started this show. That kind of response comes out of social conditioning. So I decided that I was going to turn the table on that. And then I started having fun with it. And instead of getting super irate that this person was just, furthering this misconception, I would actually look straight at the person making that comment and go, if there is a woman in your life that is experiencing PMS, then they need to work with me because her body is asking for help if she's having those symptoms. And I didn't say another word. And you know what? I actually saw every single time I said it that way, that male audience member, you could see their eyes get bigger. And it was like an epiphany to them. Like, oh, I just thought raging bitch was part of the job description before a period started. And when I framed it that way and they were like, "Oh, her body needs support? Oh, what's wrong with my wife?" Like they started getting concerned and it like totally shifted the frame. Like these are the conversations we need to have with our partners. And I am going to do a whole episode on that. But these are the conversations we have to have. We need to be talking to our young men before they go out into the world that this is how women's bodies work because no matter who you choose to love, you will have a female that you love in your life that will be affected by this. And so if we can teach the men in our lives, they start sharing it with men in their lives. Like my husband is the coolest, and I know I've cooed about him before, but like he really is the coolest because he will go into these male-dominated environments that he has worked in historically, and he hears me talking about this stuff. And he sees me literally prep our family for mom's moon time is coming. So if you need to have laundry done ahead, you better be bringing it down to the laundry room. Like, like battle stations, folks. Like, if you need things from mom, you need to get them now because the door is closing and she's going to be down for the count for a few days, right? And he's very supportive of that. He will pick up with cooking and things like that. Like, he's just the best. But I think that it's really cool to see over the time that I've been doing this work, he actually takes these gems that I talk about and he will share them with the men in his circles. So he has said before, like, I shared your website with so and so because they're thinking about trying to get pregnant, or, this person was talking about their partner was having a lot of pain and it was, making it so that they were having a difficult time, or something like, she always picks fights with me just before her period, and da 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 da, right? Venting, normal conversation, right? And my husband will step in and be like, well, that's not normal, right? And it's a revolutionary concept because we aren't taught this stuff in school. We should be, because it makes those who are non-bleeding bodies more understanding of the changes that are going on in the lives of those who are bleeding bodies. Can you imagine what the world would look like if we were so much more tolerant because we understood and didn't demand the same kind of workload and work level in those few days preparing for this very big process to happen in the body? Like, wow, man, it would just change everything. And it would change the way we talk to ourselves. That inner critic that the 3 days before you start bleeding, you're like, oh, I just have to push through this thing and I just have to finish this other thing. And, you're pulling literally the energy from your soul to just get through the day because your body's preparing for this thing to happen. And if we're understanding of that, we plan our workflow for it. Because, like, during the luteal phase, you're starting to become a little more introverted in terms of your overall energy output as you progress through the luteal phase. But damn, your brain is totally wired for planning activities. You can plan like a boss. So if you're going to be doing a family trip or something like that, plan that stuff during your luteal phase. Your mind is wired for those types of details. Bookkeeping, reconciling, all that kind of stuff. That is luteal phase activity. Harness that superpower. Because if you do, you're going to be healthier. You're going to be equally as productive. You're not going to be shaming yourself in those few days before your period starts about how tired you are and all the things you have to do. What if you re-envisioned planning that task list around your period tracker, right? Like, I use the Read Your Body app, and it's great because you put information into it in real time. But, like, I know where my period's going to start and roughly where my other benchmarks are going to happen during the month. I plan my work accordingly. All of my planning activities, I am like elbows deep in Asana, which is a project management software. I am elbows deep in Asana when I am on my luteal phase. Like, I can envision, I can plan, I can see sequentially what kinds of things have to happen in order to get to that next spot. Like, those types of activities, that's what you're hardwired for in that time frame. So use it. It's your superpower, right? Instead of shaming yourself for the fact that you're slowing down. So get out, walk, use your superpower for tasks that are going to help maximize your productivity. Don't let yourself get stagnant, because when things slow down, this is where you end up with issues. You're going to want to keep yourself warm because you're getting ready to do a big process in your body. Okay? So your luteal phase really is a superpower that you can harness how to move through the world so that you have less PMS. PMS is not normal. Our culture just normalizes it. Okay, I'm going to say that again. PMS is not normal. Our culture just normalizes it. If you want to have fewer symptoms throughout your month, learning what's happening in each phase of your cycle is incredibly important. And if you start learning that information now, you're never too old or too young to learn all of these things, right? You can have a body literacy conversation that is age appropriate. So, learning how to move through your month, what the gifts are and the benefits are, and the changes that are happening inside your body will help not only set you up for a healthier period, but improve your overall quality of health. I hope that this little mini series of episodes has been helpful to you and that you're able to take away things that you can start doing today to help live in a more easeful way. If you are looking to do a deeper dive into each of these phases of your cycle and really harness the energetic superpowers as well as the physiological ones, you're going to want to check out Not Your Mama's Menstrual Course. The link is in the show notes. If you're looking to connect with others who are also looking to transform their period problems into success and live a symptom-free life, join us in the Reproductive Rebel Podcast Listeners Facebook group. The link to join this free group is in the show notes. Join the conversation. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist, herbalist, sound healer, and Chinese nutritional therapist, Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment with Adrienne for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter to get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like us and follow Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.